Have you ever wondered how a poll can call an entire election just by talking to 1,000 people? Or how a new drug can be declared safe for millions when it was only tested on a small group? Well, the answer is this incredibly powerful idea called sampling. It's really the secret sauce to understanding our world without having to measure every single little piece of it. Let's dive in and see how it works. Really think about that for a second. When you see a news report that says, 60% of people believe X, they didn't actually call up every single person in the country? Of course not. That would be completely impossible. So how on earth do they get that number and say it with any kind of confidence? That's the exact puzzle we're going to solve today. And the answer, well, it's sampling. It's such a simple, elegant idea at its core. You don't have to drink the entire ocean to know that it's salty, right? All you need is one little cup. And that's exactly what sampling does. It takes a small, carefully chosen piece to understand the whole thing. It's pretty much the foundation of how we learn about, well, almost everything. So, when researchers decide to take that cup of water, they basically come to a fork in the road. They have to choose one of two main paths. There's the path of chance, where randomness is king, and then there's the path of choice, where the researcher's own judgment gets to play a role. Let's head down that first path, the path of chance. All right, so this first path, which a lot of people call the gold standard, is all about one thing, trying to create a sample that is a perfect, tiny mirror of the entire group you're studying. And this is what we call probability sampling, or just random sampling. The key idea here, the absolute heart of it, is that pure mathematical chance is the only thing that decides who gets included in the study. It's kind of like a perfectly fair lottery, where every single person in the entire population has one ticket. So why is this considered the gold standard? Well, because pure randomness is our best weapon against bias. There's no human element picking and choosing their favorites. This means you end up with a sample that's a true reflection of the whole group. So you can confidently say, hey, what we've found here probably applies to everyone. And, this is huge, it lets you calculate that margin of error you always hear about in polls, giving you a precise way to measure just how confident you are in your results. So random sampling sounds pretty perfect, doesn't it? What could possibly go wrong? Well, there is a catch, a really, really big catch that can make this whole beautiful method incredibly difficult to pull off in the real world. And that catch has a name. It's called a sampling frame. See, to run that perfect lottery we talked about, you need a list of every single person who is eligible to win, right? And in research, that means you need a complete, totally accurate, up-to-the-minute list of every single individual in the population you want to study. And this is where the rubber really meets the road. Think about it. Could you create a perfect list of everyone who lives in your city? Or the whole country? No way. People move, names change. It's a massive, massive challenge. And that's exactly why true random sampling can be super expensive and take a ton of time. And for that reason, when it's just not practical, researchers have to take that other path. So what do you do when that perfect gold standard is just out of reach? Well, this is where researchers get creative. They take a much more practical route, the path of choice. This is what we call non-probability sampling, and here the rules are totally different. The selection process is not random at all. Instead, people are chosen because, well, it's convenient, or because the researcher uses their expert judgment to handpick specific people they think will give them the best information. Without that perfect master list, researchers have to use other tactics. They might just survey people who are easy to find, like students walking around a college campus. Or maybe they try to build a balanced sample by finding, say, 50 men and 50 women. But one of the most clever techniques is called snowball sampling. Okay, the advantages here are pretty obvious. It's way faster, it's way cheaper, and you don't need that impossible-to-get list. But its real superpower is being able to reach what researchers call hidden populations, groups of people who are really hard to find and would never show up on any official record. It's also fantastic when you're just starting to explore a topic and you need to get some quick insights. So let me just explain how this snowball technique works, because it's pretty cool. Imagine you want to study a very hard-to-reach group, like people who are undocumented or maybe members of some secret club. You can't just find a list of them. But if you can find just one person, you can then ask them to refer you to other people they know in that group. And just like that, your sample starts to grow, or snowball, giving you a window into a world that random sampling could never even touch. But, and you knew there had to be a but, all of this convenience comes at a very big price. Because the whole process isn't random, you have to give up something huge, You lose the ability to really know how well your small group represents everybody else. And that one limitation changes everything. Here it is, the core trade-off. The sample you get probably isn't a perfect little mirror of the entire population. There's a really high risk of bias creeping in. And what that means is you can't confidently generalize your findings. What you learn from your small group might only apply to that specific group. It gives you a valuable snapshot for sure, but it is not the full family portrait. So we have one method that's theoretically perfect but often impossible, and another that's super practical but comes with some big limitations. So which one is better? Well, that's actually the wrong question to ask. The truth is, the best method is simply the right tool for the right job. It all comes down to what you're trying to do. If your goal is to predict a national election with a tiny margin of error, you absolutely need the power of random sampling. But if your goal is to understand the deeply personal experience of a small, hidden community, then the targeted approach of non-random sampling is probably your only way in. So let's just break it all down one last time, side by side. It's a really clear trade-off. With probability sampling, you're basically paying for confidence. You get high generalizability, but it's costly and needs that master list. With non-probability sampling, you're choosing speed, low cost, and access to hard-to-reach groups. But you have to accept that you can't generalize your findings, and there's a higher risk of bias. So, we'll leave you with this. The next time you're reading a headline that says, "A new study reveals," or "Scientists have found," you now have the single most important question you can ask. How did they get their sample? Was it the path of chance or the path of choice? Because now you know that one decision changes absolutely everything.